Today, we're diving into something that's shaking the very foundations of our universities. It's a crisis that could fundamentally change what a degree is even worth. And it all boils down to one thing: artificial intelligence, and how it's being used for widespread cheating. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, let's start with this number. In some university courses, lecturers are reporting that up to 95% of students are using AI to get their work done. Wow, I mean, that's not just a few people cutting corners, that's a whole system on the brink. And this isn't just about numbers, it's about the people on the front lines. When a senior lecturer like Beth says she doesn't even feel like an educator anymore and that the university itself is heading for oblivion, you know this is serious. That's the real human cost of this tech revolution. So, how did we get here? Let's unpack the mechanics of this hidden epidemic. We're talking about these incredibly powerful AI tools that are, frankly, letting students skip the entire learning process, which really undermines the whole point of education, doesn't it? The technology at the center of all this is, of course, generative AI. You've all heard of it. ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, you name it. You give it a simple prompt like, hey, write me an essay about Shakespeare, and bam, in just a few minutes, you get a well-structured, polished piece of work. Now, these tools are amazing for brainstorming, but they're also the ultimate shortcut to bypass learning completely. So, let's hear from the people who are actually in the trenches on this one. And what you're about to see is a massive, almost unbridgeable gap between how educators and students see this whole thing. Listen to this, because it just perfectly captures the feeling of helplessness. Dr. Albright is saying that most lecturers can tell when they're reading an AI-written paper. They see it, but they feel like their hands are tied. They grade it anyway because the system just doesn't give them another option. They're trapped. And then you get the complete opposite perspective. This is from Hayden, a recent graduate. He didn't just use AI, he thought it was the smart thing to do. I mean, if you're under pressure to get top marks and there's a tool right there that can help you do it, well, for him, it's not cheating, it's just being pragmatic. So you see the disconnect, right? They're both looking at the exact same tool but seeing totally different things. For lecturers, it's a disaster. It erodes integrity, it kills critical thinking. But for so many students, it's just a better way to get the job done, a tool to achieve the one thing the university is grading them on: getting good grades. So what was the university's first move? Well, naturally, they decided to fight fire with fire, and that kicked off this massive technological arms race, with schools rolling out all this fancy software to catch AI-generated text. But the real question is, does any of it actually work? Okay, so here's a quick look at how these detectors are supposed to work. They scan writing for a couple of key things. One is called perplexity, which is just a fancy way of saying how predictable the language is. The other is burstiness, which looks at how much the sentence length varies. AI writing tends to be super uniform, while human writing is, well, it's a bit more chaotic. And these tools try to spot that difference. But, and this is a huge but, it is far from a perfect fix. Sure, they can scan thousands of papers in no time, but the downsides are massive. We're talking error rates as high as 30%. They've been shown to be biased against non-native English speakers, and worst of all, there's a huge risk of falsely accusing an innocent student of cheating. And this isn't just a hypothetical problem. This actually happened. At the Australian Catholic University, nearly 6,000 students were wrongly flagged by Turnitin's AI detector. Can you just imagine the stress, the panic? Being branded a cheater by an algorithm? It was an absolute mess and a total failure. Okay, so if the technology can't save us, what are the long-term stakes here? Well, the fallout from this goes way beyond the classroom. It's affecting graduates, the people who hire them, and even Australia's reputation on the world stage. Let's just start with the money. Australia's education industry is a massive economic driver. We're talking $48 billion a year. That entire industry is built on the global reputation of its universities, a reputation that is now seriously at risk. And if you want to understand what that risk feels like on a personal level, just listen to this quote from Anna, a student who's actually doing the hard work. She feels like her degree is becoming so hollowed out that it's almost worthless. That is just a catastrophic loss of value. And you can see how it all spirals. Graduates walk into the job market without the skills they're supposed to have, so employers start losing trust in degrees from certain universities. Australia's reputation takes a hit, and the degrees that rely most on writing and deep thinking, like in the humanities, they get devalued the most. But look, it's not all doom and gloom. In the face of all this, some really smart educators and institutions are fighting back. And they're not using more broken tech. They're completely rethinking how we measure learning and how we can start to rebuild that trust. And here are some of the practical, human-first solutions they're coming up with. Think about it. You can't get ChatGPT to show up and defend your thesis in a verbal exam, right? Bringing back supervised, in-person exams takes the tool out of the equation. And instead of just grading the final essay, why not grade the whole process? The notes, the drafts, the research. And most importantly, actually bring students into the conversation to help create fair rules for using AI. All of which leads us to the one massive, unavoidable question that this whole crisis is forcing us to ask. If an AI can do the work that once earned you a degree, what does a degree even mean anymore? What is it actually for in this new world? That's a question with no easy answer. For employers and academics who are navigating this new world, the game has changed. It's now all about verifying actual skills and finding those institutions that are truly committed to academic integrity. And that's why a resource like AcademicJobs.com has become so vital. It's the best site out there for higher ed hiring and advertising, helping connect the right people with the right institutions as we all try to figure out the future of education together.